Hello, this is Israel Lopez, and in this video we're reviewing Fishbowl 2015.8 Warehouse and Manufacturing Release Highlights. I've got a bit of an announcement to make about this particular video, because this is the end, unfortunately. What is the end of? It's the end of the Fishbowl 2015 release series. There will be no more 2015 marked releases for 2015. The next one they're going to put out is 2016.0. I thought they were going to go and continue with this tradition of releasing every month. It sounds like they are, but they're actually going to be releasing the 2016 series now. I don't know why. Maybe it's just tradition that they've released the next year's version this year. But don't be expecting any more 2015 releases for this year. Sorry if I scared you for that little moment. I'm still doing the videos. I'm still around. I'm not going anywhere. So what do we have to look forward in this particular release? We have a lot. I mean, a lot. We've done a lot of bug fixes since 2015-7. We've got a lot of features that we can talk about. And we can talk about Fishbowl server on a Mac. Look at that, finally. So we've got this Fishbowl server on a Mac, and that came along with some font updates, and I'll explain that in the next slides. We've got custom work orders on sales orders. So now we can have more of a process where we can maybe build taste or make something for a customer just on the sales order. We also have a ship date confirmation window, which allows you to change the date of when something is shipped for accounting purposes. We also have Dropbox updates and a pro forma invoice finally in Fishbowl. We also have some changes in regards to dropship line items, when they're fulfilled, and how line items are created for invoices. And we have finally a modifiable list of FOB points, free onboard points, which is very important for customers who deal with a lot of imports or who sell overseas as well. And finally, we have some changes in the pick module in terms of who gets noted on when things finish. So the last person who finishes it gets the username. And like I mentioned earlier, we have about 36 fixes of bugs, and I'm going to be reviewing some of the ones that I've found, or some of the interesting ones that I've noticed in the release. So now let's get into some of the really exciting parts. We really have Fishbowl on everything. We have Fishbowl on Windows, which has been the traditional deployment target. We've had Fishbowl on a Mac for a while, actually a long while, but we've never had it on the server. And just now recently, we've got what I consider a first-class implementation or use case of Fishbowl on Linux. Fishbowl on Ubuntu, Fishbowl on Enterprise, Red Hat Linux. You know, the list goes on. And I'll be explaining how that happened or what it took to do that. So what it took to do that is I've been spending a lot of time researching how to make the Fishbowl server and client work on a Linux machine for the purposes of cloud hosting. And one of the things that we noticed, and I've given this information over to the Fishbowl developers, was not all the reports run or work correctly inside of Fishbowl. And at the time, we knew what it needed to take. We needed to transition to a common font across all systems. And initially, I thought that was never going to happen. But honestly, the fact that this actually happened makes me really, really, really happy. Some of you may see that these changes in the fonts to be bad, but I think you'll notice that it's a really good look with the new Fishbowl. And coming into the new year, who doesn't want that? So one of the things that's been changed is in the reports, because certain fonts are not available on all systems, so all the reports don't quite look the same way. We've had, depending on if you're looking at it from the Mac client or the Linux client in certain cases just didn't even run. You couldn't get the reports working right. At the time, it was, we know that we're going to deal with it later. So here's what they did. They switched from the Arial or system font that's on your particular machine to a standard font called Open Sans. Now, Open Sans is a Google font. It's open source, and it's free to use and distribute. Probably one of the biggest important pieces of why they picked this font. And now it's included in all the reports. So here's what you can review between the two fonts. I've got 4 images from a Fishbowl client and a PDF of the two fonts. The top row is the Fishbowl client in the default font of Arial. This is from the Fishbowl client at 200%, and this is from a PDF reader at 200%. And the images below is the new Open Sans font. So we've got some clear differences. I think this looks a lot better. It looks a lot cleaner. It looks kind of like some of the new Windows 10 fonts available in the new OS X. And, Mac or iOS also changed their fonts as well with the new iWatch going on too. So everyone's changing fonts, but it does look really good. I've got a lot of variables to work with. I've taken just screenshots, Windows 7 versus Windows 10, 2015 8 versus 2015 7. But I think when you see the PDFs yourselves, and I'll put something where you can kind of compare the two PDFs as an image kind of slidey thingy on my website, you'll really like the new fonts. However, if you have custom reports, that doesn't change the fonts in your custom reports. So just be aware of that your existing reports won't change. Just if you happen to be using stock reports throughout your business, the fonts will change. And maybe you like that, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to go back to the old ones. If you want to go back to the old ones, you'll have to copy over the old reports. But that may or not work on the newer releases. If so, you'll have to pay somebody, or you yourself will have to go into each area where they define a font and change it back from Open Sans to Arial, as an example. So what can we do on our new OS X server? So what you can do is run both the client, which we've always been able to do, now with a more consistent look and feel for the reports, and now you can run a server. And when you run everything on a Mac, you can just use QuickBooks Online and Xero as your accounting package. Now, I know there is QuickBooks for Mac. However, that does not have an API interface. So despite you wanting to be all Mac all the time, unfortunately, we have kind of to blame Intuit over here because they haven't created a product that will ever have an API. As far as I can tell, they're going to say, if you really want an API, you're going to want to go to QuickBooks Online instead. However, if you want to use QuickBooks Professional or Pro, or Enterprise, you will need a Windows system, and you will need to install Nexus. And it's pretty straightforward to do to get QuickBooks on a Windows computer to talk to a Mac OS X Fishbowl server and them exporting that information. Now, I know some of my customers, they've been waiting to hear this, so I'll be very happy to let them know that, yes, we do have Fishbowl on a server now. So if you have a Mac Pro, you can, the little trash can looking guy, you can run your server and your whole enterprise on the comfort of a Mac. And it's the same thing on Linux. If you happen to be running client and server on Linux, you'll only be able to access Xero and QuickBooks Online accounting. If you want to use QuickBooks Desktop or Enterprise, you'll need to use a Windows system for that, and you'll need the Nexus application to go along with it. Again, it's all pretty straightforward. They communicate over the network. It all works really, really well. All right, let's get into the live demos. So I've actually switched over my demo computer from Windows 7 to Windows 10. Skipped Windows. I actually had Windows 8.1, but then Windows 10. So let's get into it. Earlier in the week, I had posted a little picture of Fishbowl looking great on Windows 10, and I still think it looked really good. You'll notice that a lot of the UI is a bit different. We've got the glowing edges here, and we've got a really thin window chrome to look at. But if you have a 3D accelerated computer, or you have a system with a graphics card, it'll be really, really good looking on that system because everything will be really super fluid and nice. Anyway, so let's get into some of the changes. One of the big things that I noticed that they've added is in the sales order module, and this is something that I was playing with earlier. You can now go ahead and create a custom bill of material right in the sales order module. Look at that. This is something that doesn't exist in the system at all. And in order to do that, there's no button here on the right-hand side, but you go navigate that through the wizard for the add sales order item. You click on custom work order. You define what kind of finished good you want to make. Let's do let's do a custom value bike or BB 2010, and you have a kind of like a blank canvas of what kind of items you want to use. I'm just going to add one item just because. Right? Gives you a summary, gives you cost breakdown, a date scheduled, maybe a note. And there you go. Now you've added that item to the sales order, and it has custom configuration or custom bill of materials for that. Okay, that's really amazing. I'm really impressed by that. I think a lot of customers will start using that. I still think that there is room for improvement. I haven't even checked if this is available over the API. I know a lot of customers who deal with custom configuration or custom manufacturing would love this. However, be aware that that doesn't absolve you for making one-off costing. It still doesn't do specific identification. So depending on your costing method, like FIFO, you could be costing and selling and giving a margins on something that doesn't even apply to what you're building for this particular customer. Let's say we had 5 different builds of this bike. Well, you could have the cheap bike go out versus the expensive bike go out, and your margins are all whacked. However, if that doesn't matter to you, you're just trying to do some kind of communication in the configuration. Now, this is a great feature for that. So one of the other things that they've done in the manufacturer order is they've added this new button. Now, I wish some of these buttons were actually a little bit bigger now. They should be getting around to that. They can actually start creating bill of materials in the manufacturer order directly based on how you've configured it. Maybe you've created a custom BOM, and you don't want to waste time creating that again. So you just go ahead and click that button, and we've got a new bill of material to work with. Other thing we've got going on is we've got a pick module that allows us to, a pick module option that allows us to assign the user to the pick when they finish. I know some of my customers wanted this because they try to figure out who picked it. They who picks it, is more responsible for what's going on, which I agree. So now when you pick an order and finish it, the username will appear here. In the shipping area, we've got something really neat to work with, and I've already turned it on, and I'll show you what's going on. This new shipping confirmation window. Now, before you get this little pop-up saying it's shipped, and you don't have an option to change the date. Now, a lot of my customers will use the batch shipment feature that allows them to change the date of when it ships. Let's say we shipped it actually on the Saturday or Sunday, and I don't have any shipments that are packed. Oops. But what would happen is that you could use that functionality to forward date or back date a shipment, and that's when the terms would start, ticking for net 30, net 60 in QuickBooks. Now, I've turned it on, and that what allows me to confirm is like, are you sure you want to ship? Which is great because a lot of customers just would ship and say, oh no, I didn't really want to ship. So now you actually got the option to change it, and you also actually have the option to change the date, which could be good or bad. So depending on what you want, you're going to want to decide if that needs to be in the confirmation or not through this checkbox, show confirmation on ship. Okay. We've in the inventory module, one of the biggest things that I've heard each time I've deployed Fishbowl is, where's my inventory? Why isn't it here? And it was all through this option where, well, it's not here. It's not in your inventory. Why would it be in the inventory module? And to be honest, that was a pretty poor answer to why can't I find my parts. So now you've got that option in advanced search to say show parts with no on-hand inventory. And there's already been some criticism about it that there should be a default option. It should be a module option that is, always turned on or however. I do agree with that. I don't know if there's any performance ramifications by doing that, but hey, let's assume there's not, and leave it on always. So that'd be great. Great option right there. Next is Dropbox. So in the past, I've connected Fishbowl to Dropbox, and you've had to click on all these module associations. Now, what's available is that all these module associations are checked, assuming that you want to use Dropbox everywhere. And I think that's a great idea. It saves time, not a big deal. Sometimes people would set this up and forget to check off the module associations and think that, oh no, my Dropbox isn't working, this thing sucks, and who knows. But now that's all there. Additionally, when you're in the Dropbox module, uh, you can actually now recursively look through all the files and folders and not just see the files in the Dropbox folder. So you'd have multiple files in all the folders in this particular PO. Let's see if I can drag one in there now. Oh no, I think I just found a bug. Oh, that's why. I know exactly why. It's because I'm not actually in a PO. There we go. I didn't find a bug. I'm just silly. Anyway, so you can get the idea. We've got multiple folders under PO. Maybe you have a folder for I don't know, certificate of authenticity and all that kind of stuff. And you got a particular structure per PO. Now you can see those all in the Dropbox tab in your modules. Let's go pop over to the data module. The data module is starting to see more love, and I really do appreciate that. I love using the data module. Whenever I just recently got a request from a customer, it's like, look, there's some of the reports in Fishbowl don't quite give me what I want. I just want a list of my vendor parts by vendor, sorted by vendor. And rather than me spending the time and energy to go build a report just for that purpose, I said, look, I logged into your server, I created the query, go look in there, go and look in the list, and it'll be right there. I'll show you how to run it, and you got exactly what you're looking for. Perfect. No complaints. People love that. The other complaints that I've heard is, how do I write my own queries? And I also have a course for that as well. But how do I find what tables are available? Because I kind of understand database systems. What do I have to work with? Well, now you have a tables tab inside the data module to tell you where things are in the system. I don't think necessarily this is the most comprehensive, but hey, it's better than looking at a PDF of a data dictionary and trying to figure this out, or connecting to another application to get the same thing, like a database management tool for Firebird, and looking for this information one by one. Now, I don't know yet, but I think there might be some issues with this particular module if you have a lot of data. Let's say you have 100,000 POs or 100,000 sales orders. This may take a while. I don't know if there's a limit to this. Probably not, but we'll find out. So anyway, cool things in the data module. Always good. Still haven't added parameters. Still haven't added a way to hide the SQL, but that's okay. We'll get there someday. In the customer module, a customer can be defined a particular class. Now that's pretty novel. I know another consultant in the Fishbowl community had asked for this. I hadn't thought about it, but I think it's a great idea as well. And now we have it. So when you happen to create a sale for that customer, let's do Bethany Bulk. Bethany, you'll have the class defined, all ready to go. Neat. I think that's a great idea. I'm sure it saves a lot of people time and implements a better process when people are trying to keep things together in their accounting. Next is the shipping module again. We'll pop back over there. And what I noticed is in the release notes is that they now have a shipping invoice that you can run before you can ship. And what they call this is a pro forma invoice. And they have a little note down here saying only inventory items shown, may be missing others. Well, I know that's not what people want to hear, but honestly, the calculation of what goes on an invoice happens after you ship, because that's when you've actually committed to shipping it. Now that you can void a shipment, that's a bit of a you don't have to worry about that as much. So when you do ship it, you can go ahead and run the shipping invoice again, and it is an invoice, and you don't get that item, that notice there. But you would have line items for discounts and subtotals and other things like services and shipping. You just don't have that information ahead of time. Before, I think in 2015-7, it was just a blank page. It didn't even have an error message indicating that it was like that. Nowadays, it's you actually get to see something, but that notice is still there. You might ship that out to a customer, so oops. But an improvement nonetheless. So let's go with that. One last thing is Dropship Items, and this is actually something that I wasn't really aware of, because not a lot of my customers do dropship. They do, but it's usually one out of the order. They would add a dropship line item, and what would happen is, let's add another one. Oh, I did that. Ooh, that's a good catch, Fishbowl. I changed a custom configuration item from a sale to a dropship, and it told me that it was going to get rid of that. That's really good. I'm glad they figured that out, because I don't think I would have thought of that either. We're going to dropship that. We're going to dropship this. Anyway, so what would happen is you have two line items on this sales order, right? And they come from two different vendors. And you receive it at the same time, indicating that, yes, it went out to the customer. Well, what would have happened is multiple invoices with a single line would get exported to our accounting system, and you'd have two invoices, even though you only really need one. So that's being changed. That's going to be a lot better. I don't know when that got got introduced. I probably think it kind of got introduced after the zero stuff, but hey, stuff happens. I'm glad that that's fixed and that we don't have to deal with that anymore. I'm sure a lot of people were really, really antsy about that. And finally, but not least, is we have a FOB point list that we can now modify, just like our shipping terms, in the FOB point in the company module and the setup company module setup. I'm sorry, it's getting kind of late. Anyway, so we can create new ones. So let's say this is my house, whatever. Point being, we can now set that up in the company module so that we can have custom FOB points. Maybe because of our process, we need a custom one. Before, what I would usually do is just create a custom field called FOB point in the sales order and get around that way, which is not elegant. But now that we have this, I don't have to do that anymore. It's part of Fishbowl. Okay. On to the fixes. So these are some of the fixes that I kind of noticed that were really important to me, or maybe I noticed that were kind of interesting. In the Fishbowl client, now the software customers who only have software only or update only contracts for support show the status accurately. Before it said like you were going to expire inaccurately. Now it actually says you do have support, or you do have software update support up until the date that your contract ends. We have some changes in the CSV import and export fixes. Some of the ones that we don't normally use all that often unless we have lots of data to load up. Maybe when we create a new file for a database. So that's really important. We had some changes and bug fixes regarding build to order inventory and when you change tracking. Apparently, when you change tracking, when you had two build to order inventory items with the hat connected to two different work orders, you would change it on one and it would change both. A little bit of a bug there. I didn't really like seeing that, but I'm glad they fixed that. Great for them. When you create new databases in Fishbowl, the search by description and number checkbox in the part module is now default to on. So that's a better, I think, better defaults are always good, right? So you have the better experience with the software. So I'm glad they saw that. One thing that I've noticed that was looks like that was pretty important. Pricing rule is now fixed because it was broken when your part and product unit measures were different, and you were costing on the part, like you were using the part data for costing rules. So you had some kind of mismatch there, and it would incorrectly price, which is unfortunate. We have some QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online fixes. Some of the stuff is not necessarily noted in the release notes, just based on my internal communications with developers and them letting me know what's going on, because I have some particular bugs that I work with. They're not quite resolved, but at least are getting fixed, or the environment is being improved. So definitely keep upgrading to 2015.8. Please, please, please upgrade. One last thing. The reconcile default on new databases was set to do not calculate. That actually bit me a couple of times doing demos with customers, because I do the demo, do the reconcile, and then nothing would reconcile, nothing would land in cost. And I was wondering, am I going crazy? And what it was is the default just wasn't on. and it took me a few moments to figure that out with the customer, on the demo. Oh well. But we got to figure it out, and I'm glad that this is kind of fixed for 2015.8. I don't have to deal with that anymore. And finally, there was a API update to allow you to add sales order items to an existing sales order. So now you can. Before you got some kind of exception. Now you can upload items to a sales order, and I'm really glad to see that. And that's it. I want to say thank you. I also want to let you know that we still have an fbusergroup.com. I know a lot of you are on the Facebook group, but definitely drop us a note over at fbusergroup.com. And one last thing is I have a new product coming out. All I can do is share with you the name. It's called Beep One, and it's a warehouse management system for Fishbowl. And if you have any questions about that, please send me a note. I'd love to share with you what we're trying to do over here, but I think you'll like that here in the coming months. Thanks, and have a good day.